Hi, good morning everyone. I would like to share with you something Quantum University and Greg Braden are sharing with me right now. And this is very, very ultimately relative to the times we're going through. The long foretold, long predicted, the human cultural history apocalypse. Behold, we are within the apocalypse, long foretold. We can see this unrest globally. I just produced a video with a map which shows all of South America is now destabilized and some 30 countries in massive protests and unrest. We have billions of people starving, billion people on the move, displaced, so on and so forth. It can no longer be ignored because it is clearly increasing. None of these problems are decreasing, yeah? Some people call this a matrix reset, a harvesting of souls, all sorts of other esoteric paths. But today I want to talk about the resilience of or ability to make it through this apocalypse in one piece. What I mean by one piece is you becoming one with all that is. You fractally able to meet the pattern of the universe so that your heart wave is cohered to heaven, so that you make it out of this chrysalis of matter and are not imprisoned in matter forever as a spirit, aka matrix escape. For this you must have a cohered heart. Heart Math Institute has done a lot of work on this. I've mentioned Dan Winter before and his talk where he takes you through it just exquisitely, absolutely beautifully. He takes you through the actual patterns. It's all scientific and everything. We have it fully pragmatic now. But here is a different angle on it, but it's the same thing about the heart, which is, remember, the first thing that is grown in your baby body in the womb, not your brain first, your heart comes first. In this talk, he's mentioned some things that I already knew, which are worth mentioning again though, in case you don't know them, that, people like the scientist who discovered the neurites, neuronal cells in the heart, whose last name was Amor, which means love in Spanish. The heart's always associated with love a bit, isn't it? Very interesting. So perhaps this is all meant to be. So, they discovered neurons or neurites in the human heart. And half of this talk now, the end half, is Greg talking about the heart-brain connection and how this will give you the resilience, literally, not figuratively speaking, not metaphorically or anything, but literally will give you the resilience to get through these times of chaos. So I'm going to play an excerpt here. This is obviously by Quantum University, and Greg Braden is the speaker. And I want you to see that this is, not woo-woo or anything, not airy-fairy, that is solid science, and I think you need to take this into your consideration.
Our abilities and to fine tune these abilities, and where you're seeing the red line on the screen. Before the red line, you were seeing someone who is not in optimal coherence. From the point they began to breathe and feel differently, I want you to see how quickly this can change. This is not edited. This is real time. This is how quickly we can change. And you see the change going into deep heart waves that allow us to have this optimal experience. And at the lower right-hand side of the screen, you can see the coherence that this person is creating between low, medium, and high. The longer they do the breathing and the feeling, the more of the green and the less of the red shows up. And this is one example of the kind of tools that are available for us to do this. Now, very quickly, all of this begins in the heart. And I think that's pretty obvious by now. it's all about what we call heart rate variability. Um, the distance between each heartbeat, the beat-to-beat variability, the peak that we see, each spike of a heartbeat is called the R wave. It's part of the QRS complex. The R is the peak that you're seeing. From one R wave to the next is a period of time shown in milliseconds. And on the screen, we're looking at 845 milliseconds. The next one's 745, 812, 732. The point here is that they're close, but they're not exact. They're not the same. And that is the point, is that the time between each of our heartbeats is not the same, and it's a good thing that it's not, because that variability from one beat to the next is what gives us our resilience to change in life. The variability from beat to beat, it's actually called heart rate variability, HRV. That variability gives us our resilience to life. When we're very young, we have tremendous variability. The number from one beat to the next, it changes with every beat when we first come into this world, because we must be resilient to a new world that we're only beginning to understand. As we get older, we become set in our ways, rigid in our thinking, and it's actually reflected in our heartbeat. And the time between the beats becomes more regular, and change becomes more difficult. The good news here is that everything we've just talked about, when we optimize this communication between the heart and the brain, it actually optimizes heart rate variability. It gives us more change, and that means we are now more resilient to life. So greater coherence does all those other good things, and greater coherence gives us optimal resilience to our time of extremes that we're talking about now. So we began this program about an hour ago by saying that big change in the world means big change in our lives. That's where you and I are today. I think it's fair to say the better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to embrace whatever life brings to our door. The better we can embrace that big change in a healthy way. The change isn't going to go away. We are living a time of extremes for our generation and probably for our children's. And that's why I wanted to start the program by saying the changes aren't temporary. We're living a new normal. So we can struggle against the new normal and cling to an old idea of an old world and an old way of healing and wait for that to come and experience the stress of that world not existing, or we can embrace the beautiful new world and the new solutions that allow us to thrive in that world that are here now. Let the old world go and those old ideas. And I've just shared with you the science that gives us new ways of thinking, of moving from competition to cooperation, from separation to connection. Those are all the keys in helping us to embrace this change in a better way. The power of the human heart, I think this is the next frontier of health and healing. And if you haven't already, I think you're going to see more and more about this in some of the studies that I've shared with you today. But it shouldn't surprise you, because it's instinctive. Almost universally, our elders and our most cherished spiritual traditions, our young people and our ancient religions, indigenous people and practices from all over the world, intuitively, instinctively, we know that it's all about the heart. It's probably no accident then that the heart is the first organ to grow in your body when you're in your mother's womb. It's not the brain. The heart emerges first, and from the heart, then the signals begin to give other signals and other cells the instructions for how to build another you. So, I'm going to close this program today with another quote from a man that I have so much respect for, Buckminster Fuller. He died in 1983, and I never knew him. But the more I know about his work, the more I know that he was a man so far ahead of his time. He talked about change, and what he said is you never change things by fighting the existing reality. I think there's a lot of truth to that. He says if you want to do something new, if you want to change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. I think that's true for everything we do in life, and I can't think of a place where it'd be even more true than the health model and the healing that is available to us in our lives and our world today. The integrative models of the best science, the best technology of the 20th and now the 21st century, married with 5,000 years of wisdom from those who have come before us, who understood their bodies and their body's relationship to the world. When we marry those together and we embrace the concepts of cooperation between the cells of the body and between the organs of the body, and the cooperation, the mutual aid that one organ gives to another, we begin to think of health and healing in a very, very different way. If you want to build something new, change something. You build a new model, it makes the old model obsolete. So I want to thank you for all that you're doing to bring this new world.
So, I left it playing there for an extra minute because I thought another chart was going to be shown, but it turns out that chart is actually a couple of minutes back in the video. I just realized. And this chart showed that Heart Math Institute has found that 0.1 hertz, 0.1 hertz, not 1 hertz, not 10 hertz, 0.1 hertz is the optimal zone where the heart can communicate to the brain, and we can get the fractal pattern all the way through to the brain, all the way to the frontal neocortex is the goal of magnetic fusion. So we can get the magnetic heart field fractal patterns completely fused in the human neocortex and purify with cosmic truth the human ego individual zone in the brain, which is located in the frontal cortex. 0.1 hertz, what does that tell you? I like how they called it hertz, because it hurts when you touch the computer and get the hertz, right? And 0.1 hertz means not much hurts, not much hurting, not much pain. What else does it say? Well, it's a very low, it's almost nothing. It's 0.1. It's not 100 hertz, is it? So it's very interesting that this would relate to being silent or in a silence, or sitting with yourself in silence, not having endless small talk with people over who won the latest game, what's the weather doing, endless, I don't know, whatever it is you're talking about, but silence instead. Not watching a video, not playing a game, but sitting with yourself, your body, in silence would achieve 0.1 hertz. This is how we will increase our resilience and make it through this apocalypse in one piece.